There's a very common real estate scenario in New York, let's call it that, where a big developer wants to buy a couple of buildings that are, maybe 3, 4 stories high, maybe even just 1 story, and they want to tear it down and build a high rise there. And in order to do that, a lot of times buildings in New York, they have what's called like rent stabilization. And in order to demolish the buildings, you need to have no one living there, right? But it's very difficult to get someone to not live in a rent stabilized unit. And that's completely understandable. So what ends up happening is that the real estate developer or like the landlord would buy these people out. So they'll say like, here's a couple $1,000s, couple $100,000, sometimes even $1 million just to move out, and they'll demolish the building once everyone's out, and then boop, they build up their new high rise. And the reason why people do that is because housing is such a necessity in New York, right? So a high rise has more units in it than these tiny apartment buildings. So overall, you would get a lot more units in New York, which you guys all know already. Like the higher the supply, the lower the rent gets actually, right? So the issue is that sometimes people don't want to move, and completely get it. Sometimes you are, let's say 70 years old. You just wanted to live in that neighborhood for the rest of your life. Those people don't take a buyout. You could give them $10 million. They won't move out. What ends up happening is that everyone else moves out. And then in this one building, out of the 4 buildings that they want to demolish, one person's living in those 4 buildings because they refuse to take the buyout. What ends up happening is the entire building's kind of like a ghost town until that person passes away. That just ruins a lot of units of housing in New York. So my question is, and this is obviously hypothetical, is this a case of an evil real estate developer or an evil tenant? Because technically, if the tenant cooperated and just moved to a different apartment, maybe even the one next door that isn't being demolished, a lot of new housing units would be available to like the rest of the population, right? And it's kind of like an ethical dilemma, right? Because you don't want to kick some old person out of their house, but at the same time, you kind of want New York to be more affordable, and without adding more units to live in, how can it be more affordable, right? It's impossible for it to. It's really something to think about. But the reason why I bring this up is because it leads to, like, a lot of these buildings are pretty ugly, right? They are eyesores. They're very old, and they're honestly, a lot of them, some of them are pretty, but a lot of them are not. And then it also leaves like a ghost town on certain blocks where just nothing's rented out and like no action's going on there. And that just doesn't feel like New York. So I wish there was a better solution to this. I don't know who's in the right or in the wrong. Maybe some philosopher can kind of chime in there. But yeah, just something that I've been thinking about recently. But let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.